Hello, scary ramblers, and how are you this fine day? Wherever you are, I hope you're having a good time. And welcome back to Jack and Ori with me, Marie-Anne Cope, as I read to you the stories from Volume 1 of Tales from a Scary Girl. As I've said in a few of the other videos, Volume 2 is going to be out later this year around Halloween with a very different style to it, but a style that will probably be quite reflective of the story I'm about to read to you today. Now, this story is one that all the ladies seem to like. It's probably, at the time of publishing this book, it was the darkest thing I'd ever written. It's a story that may make the chaps amongst you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but let's see what you think. And it's called How Does Your Garden Grow? Why do I do it? Honestly, it all started with a thought I had one day. The thought that I could just randomly kill someone and I wouldn't feel a thing. And I haven't. Not a flicker. It's almost like I'm dead inside, but I'm not. What it does do, even if only temporarily, is release the tight fist of anger and hate that resides in my chest. The freedom I feel is like a drug. I feel euphoric, I feel free, and I feel alive. The bottom line is, I feel. So, let me take you on a journey into my world. The world of a serial killer. It takes 3 kills to achieve that status, and I've way surpassed that. So, grab your coat and let's go hunting. I stared at the man before me, so beautiful, so confident. So why did he do what he did? Why did he treat them like they didn't matter? Like they were toys that could be picked up and dropped again on a whim? They weren't toys, they were people. They felt, they loved, and they hurt. And he needed to understand exactly what pain was. Maybe then he'd realise the impact of his actions. Please, please let me go, he said, tears seeping from the corners of his eyes. The plastic crackled under my feet as I stepped forward. I couldn't take my eyes off him. He was gorgeous, sculpted from marble like Michelangelo's David. His body was divine. His hair, dark and tousled an hour ago, lay matted with sweat against his skull. His piercing blue eyes that made my heart skip a beat, now showed only fear. I stuffed a rag soaked in cloves into his mouth. I needed silence from him for my work, and I loved the smell of cloves. He was spread-eagled on what he believed to be my bed. Men are all the same. I haven't met one who would turn down the chance of no questions asked sex. The shock on his face when I shoved him down onto his current resting place, a marble slab, had made me smile. His head had slammed against the marble, stunning him long enough for me to snap the handcuffs shut and turn up the lights. The seductive boudoir he'd imagined had been transformed into the torture chamber it really was. When I pressed play on my iPod, the harsh tones of Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique flooded the room. I closed my eyes and tuned in, letting the music wash through me, connecting with the black ball at my core. I snapped on latex gloves and turned to face my blank canvas, the tools of my trade laid out neatly, waiting for me to make my choice. Scalpel first, I thought. The music suffusing my body caused my hand to almost dance. With the tip pressed against his smooth, flawless cheek, I applied just enough pressure to break the skin. Usually, I would wait for the music to move my hand and create my masterpiece, but my latest canvas decided he wanted to do it himself. I held my hand still, watching the picture emerge as he tossed his head from side to side in a desperate attempt to avoid the blade. If only he'd used his brain. Too pretty, too cocksure, too vain. A bubble of pleasure bounced off the blackness inside me, and I caught a sliver of light. I traced the scalpel down over his chin, leaving a path from the mosaic of his face, hovering over his carotid artery, until his whimpering and shuddering almost brought my pleasure to an end. The journey continued to his chest, his pumped, waxed and tanned pectoral muscles. My scalpel sank cleanly into each muscle, and I watched the blood surface and fan out like poppies across the canvas. Poppies had centres, didn't they? Dark ones. I cut deeper into the muscle, carving a circular centre in each pectoral, my pliers serving to pull the flesh back, creating a perfect centre for my poppies. My canvas, however, was doing his best to ruin everything, by tensing whenever I touched him. This caused the blood to pump more, threatening to spoil my design. What to do? My tray of tools glistened in the overhead light. Which one would do the job? My gaze settled on the heaviest object, the wrench. I picked it up and ran my fingers along its length before brushing its cold, hard surface against my cheek. I shuddered. Then, raising my arm above my head, I brought it down hard on his temple. Bone crunched, and then his body went limp. Good. Now I could work. My favourite flowers of all are daisies, the multitude of petals reflecting the multiple facets of my personality. Daisies, however, do not have dark centres, but you have to work with what you've got when you're an artist. I flicked each of his nipples to see if I got a response and gently massaged them until they became hard. Men. I selected my next implement, the nail clippers, and knowing the firmness wouldn't last long, I clipped each nipple off and placed them in a plastic tub for later use. Maybe. The ruby liquid bubbled to the surface and I shivered with pleasure. Then I realised my mistake. My canvas started to flood. Damn it! Luckily, I always keep additional supplies for just such emergencies. I grabbed the salt and poured it into the 2 wounds, rubbing it in firmly to try to soak up enough of the blood to allow me to finish. I brushed the excess away and pressed the remainder into the wounds before leaning in close to carve the delicate daisy petals around each aureole. The use of the salt was starting to bring my canvas around. Never mind, I'd want him awake soon anyway. A paintbrush served to disband any leftover salt, and I concentrated on joining my poppies and daisies together with interconnecting stems, which finished at his navel. Finished with my scalpel for the time being, I picked up a piece of bamboo cane and some garden twine. It was time to create the centrepiece. It always amazed me how small a penis could make itself when under threat. It certainly wasn't this small when he first got here. He'd been ever so proud of it. Let's see what he thinks when I finish with it. He needed to be awake for this. He needed to feel the pain that I was about to inflict on his most prized organ, the same organ he'd used to bring so much pain to others. I grabbed the bucket of water at my feet, emptied it over his head, and took the rag out of his mouth. "You fucking bitch! What the—" I tuned out. I'd heard it all before. I picked the cane up and took a length of twine, securing the cane to the base of his penis. I then pulled the penis as tall as it would go and wrapped 2 more pieces of twine around it. Didn't want it collapsing before I was finished now, did I? The obscenities kept coming, but they would change very soon. Next, I picked up a pair of very sharp nail scissors and went to work on the creation of my centrepiece. Oh yes, the obscenities soon changed, didn't they? I smiled. To say he sounded like a wounded animal was an understatement. Once I'd finished, I peeled the petals down, revealing the plump, vulnerable core of my lotus flower. Next, I picked up a length of stiffened wire with a brightly coloured butterfly on the end, the picture I was creating clear in my mind. No, please, no more, I'm sorry. Whatever it is I've done to you, I'm sorry, my canvas pleaded. My hand hovered just over the centre of the flower. This isn't about me. This is about the rest of them, I said as I began to push the wire deep into his core. A thrill bubbled through me as I watched his body contort as he tried to curl in on himself in self-preservation. His howls could be heard for miles around if there was anyone to hear them, but there wasn't. I stopped pushing as the butterfly hovered just above the centre of the lotus flower, ready to alight. Pleased with the effect, I pondered my next tool of choice, scissors or carving knife. It was going to be scissors, as it was a very slow and painful way to do what I was going to do, but I opted for the carving knife. I hadn't used it in a while, and I liked to have a change every now and then. The knife glinted in the light, and I held it up so he could see it. I now needed to relocate my centrepiece. He was watching me. I could see him out of the corner of my eye. I don't suppose this had ever happened very often to him, a woman having him by his balls. I brought the knife to the core of his being, to the centre of his world. I smiled when I saw his expression change as the penny dropped, or should I say, thudded. No, please, I'll undo it. Whatever it is, I'll make it right. Don't cut my cock off, I beg you. There is nothing you can do, I said, jabbing the tip of my knife under his chin. You've already done enough, ruined too many lives, conned too many women into believing you're a good guy. You make me sick. With that, I started to carve. At first, he screamed, but as with all of them, the pain soon overcame him and he passed out. Once again, Berlioz and I were alone. I hummed along to the music as I sliced through muscle, tendons and ligaments until my lotus flower was finally free. Not wishing to disturb my work, I gently removed the splint and placed the flower on his navel at the base of the intertwining stems. Finally, I released his hands from the cuffs and arranged them so they cupped the lotus flower. Of course, they wouldn't stay in place of their own accord, but I had found a 9-inch nail hammered through the back of each hand into those carefully sculpted abdominal muscles. Usually did the trick. As my final act, I slashed his carotid and femoral arteries with a scalpel and watched as the blood pumped from his body into the receptacles below. He never regained consciousness, which was a shame. I picked up a paintbrush and artist's canvas and, dipping the brush in his blood, I proceeded to write, "To all my victims, I am truly sorry." I then placed the canvas between his legs and, going to my camera-mounted tripod, I viewed my masterpiece before capturing the image for my collection. I'm sure he was sorry. They usually are by the time I finish with them. I took a deep breath and exhaled. The blackness was gone again, for now. So, this is what I do. I don't believe I'm doing anything wrong. I believe I'm bringing justice to all the women those men have wronged. Why? Well, because our judicial system constantly fails them. I'm lucky though. I live in the middle of nowhere, so no one can see or hear anything. To my knowledge, no one has seen me with these men, but I'm aware that this may not always be the case. So, really, the only person who knows is you. And I am telling you because I want the real story to be told and to come out when I'm caught, which I know I will be, one day. I want these women to know that someone was fighting for them. I suppose you want to know how I get rid of the bodies. Well, that's a story for another day. Goodbye. I disconnected the call and leant back in my sun lounger, surveying the beauty of my garden. It is truly stunning. The colours, the variety, the longevity. If people were to ask, I would tell them that it's all in the fertiliser. So there we have it. The darkest tale I'd written at the time of publishing this book. I do hope you liked it in the best way you can. I know you ladies out there will like it. So, next time, I'll have another story for you. But until then, have fun, look after yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Take care.